If you want to change your life in 2025, then I have some news for you. It's actually not that hard to do. I know that might be surprising, but there are little things that you can do that will have a huge impact on your life. Around this time of year, there's a lot of videos with these kind of habits that everyone should implement. This isn't one of those videos. Habits are really personal. Habits are things that should be cultivated to try and get you to become more like the person that you want to be. Some of the habits that I've implemented definitely could be helpful in that, but not all of them will be. I recently made a video about the idea of a becoming board, and that is like a vision board, but it's more about the daily processes of trying to get to the kind of person you want to be. Part of that was writing out a list of traits that you feel the person that you want to be has. Those could be really simple things, from the kind of hot drink they have in the morning to what kind of exercise they do to how they get to work and so on and so forth. And I would encourage you to think about what kind of person it is that you're looking to change into when you're deciding what habits you actually are going to implement. One tip when you're trying to add any new habits into your routine would be habit stacking. In the book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about the idea of stacking habits onto existing ones. Rather than trying to just add a new habit into any old part of your day, the ideal times to do that would be after something that you're already doing. For example, if every morning you get up, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, then there's kind of a gap. That kind of gap would be the best time to add in a new habit. One daily habit that I feel has had a huge impact on my life is the process of daily journaling. I think this one is not a surprise. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know already that I do this. It's also something that you'll tend to see in lots of videos like this. The specific type of journaling that I do is the 3 A4 pages of freehand, whatever comes out kind of journaling that's part of the book The Artist Way. I've done this for over a year at this point and written hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's something that people maybe don't feel they have the time to do or might slow them down. I've personally found that in the slowing down, there's been a lot of kind of magic that can happen. One reason why this habit of daily journaling has had such a big effect on me is that it's something that for me takes around 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. After making the space for this, I'm now a different person. There would have been many, many mornings where I woke up early, woke up at 5 or 6 a.m. in order to do work that I needed to do before I got to a 9 a.m. lecture that I was giving. And I'm not that person anymore. Every day I have this time before I have to go anywhere that I can do this process of daily journaling, and that means that I am now quite a different person. The process itself has led me to a lot of different discoveries. Emptying my head at the start of every day is really useful for staying on top of different work-related tasks and not having things kind of escape from me. I know lots of people that don't write down anything, and that scares me. I don't know how people do that. It's not something that I'd be able to do. There's just too much going on in my mind. But once that kind of emptying has happened, your brain can eventually start to create things in the space. Video ideas, ideas for products, just creative things for me as well. And then lots and lots of room for kind of growth and development. Another habit that I feel has changed my life is practicing hobbies. I think in our adulthood, we can very much get away from hobbies. It can be really easy to fall out of the habit of doing things for yourself. We can often think that we don't have time for these things, and this is definitely something I said to myself for a really long time. There were a number of things that I did as a child that I stopped doing once I got older, and would imagine that it would be nice eventually to have the time to do these things. Reorganizing my time in order to create space for these. This has definitely changed who I am as a person, because I'm now somebody who has time to practice piano and somebody who has time to go to an improv class and make connections with people that I wouldn't usually get to. I have time to spend on my own acting craft in my own time at home and get involved with various things that I really love doing. Giving yourself fully to a creative hobby, especially, I find, and being able to just put all of your focus and attention into that, even if it's just for an hour a week, can make a huge difference in your life. Especially, I think the community and the connection aspect for me has been really important, because I live in Ireland, where a lot of my friends have left this country, and without having hobbies, I think I would really struggle to make new connections with people. One that really surprised me in terms of how much of an impact it's had on who I am as a person. In 2024, around late September, early October, I decided to start cycling as my main mode of transport. I don't think I anticipated fully making it my main mode of transport because there's, some 30 to 45 minute cycles in my week, and I didn't expect to be doing those on my bike. But this was the one that was most, I suppose, associated with that idea of trying to get closer to the person that you want to be. I have this dream of going to acting school. And for me, the kind of person that can do that, I have this picture of what that person is like. And that person commutes by bike. And now I am that person that commutes by bike. And that has actually changed my personality. I feel I'm a lot more confident since I started doing that. I feel really cool when I'm on my bike. It's changed a lot of things because my stress levels in terms of getting to places is a lot lower because I don't have to rely on public transport. It's made me feel a lot stronger and a lot fitter, and that has really impacted my confidence as well. And it's just one that I just wouldn't have really expected to have such of an impact. I think also because there are some difficult cycles where I have to get through quite a lot of either kind of strenuous distance or bad weather. It's kind of also been really good for my resilience because I'm learning that I can do these hard things and push through difficult situations, and that has been really good for my self-esteem. The most recent habit that I've implemented that has made a big difference on my life is getting some morning light. Over Christmas, I received from Jack a vitamin D light to use in the darker months, especially because we have quite a longer dark period in Ireland, quite dark in the mornings, and that can naturally affect your sleep and it can affect your levels of tiredness. Using this lamp in the morning, especially when it's still dark out, to train yourself into being awake at that time of day has had such a big impact on my sleep. I've slept way better since I've started using it. To not feel as tired and to be able to have a lot more energy during the day, especially in these darker months, has been really, really beneficial. Something that I've struggled with for a really long time is tidiness. I'm not a very tidy person. I never have been, but I would like to be. I'm going to actually put a bonus one in here. So 2 things that I felt really helpful for this. One is implementing the habit of a 10-minute tidy. A 10-minute tidy is what it sounds like. You just tidy up for 10 minutes, and 10 minutes a day, I kind of do twice a day, typically some little bit of housework in the morning and a little bit of housework in the evening. And that helps me stay on top of things because I'm someone who definitely struggles with executive function and things can easily build up and then I get stressed and then I can't do those things. The second one that's connected to this that I've actually found more useful in terms of actually becoming the kind of person who is tidy is this mantra of don't put it down, put it away. When you're coming home, let's say, and you've got all these bags, you've got different things, rather than putting all your stuff down, which can create clutter and can create mess over the week, you put it away. And that sounds really simple. If you're the kind of person who just does that automatically, then go you, I guess. But for those of us who would struggle with these things, having that little reminder in your mind, I've found really helpful for becoming someone who just is a bit more tidy. Cultivating a regular yoga practice has had huge impact on my life. I think out of all of the different types of exercise that I've done, it's the one that helps me connect to my body the most. I'm definitely someone who struggles to process emotions and feel them. Yoga is the kind of activity that really helps to open you up to feeling more of what's going on in your body, especially because as an exercise, it's so connected to the breath. It's really an important kind of exercise for me to be able to release a lot of different emotions. You're typically not doing the same routine over and over again, but you'll see a lot of the same exercises. You'll get to improve gradually along these different poses. And there's a lot of joy that can be brought from making these small improvements in different poses. For example, in my just general flow, like my sun salutations recently I've been able to actually roll over my toes. Down dog, plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. I'm now able to kind of more smoothly do those rolls along the toes rather than having to tuck and untuck my toes. And that is a really small win, but a win nonetheless, and one that feels great. The other reason I think it's really beneficial is because it's definitely an exercise form that's really focused on posture and mobility, both of which I definitely need. The focus on the breath and generally some form of meditation, which, as somebody who is a highly anxious person, it's something that I feel like brings me a lot of peace, which is something I really crave at the moment and something that I really want more of in my life. Something that has made me a more spiritual person, we'll say, is the habit of a cacao ceremony. And this is something that I think is the most like woo-woo thing I'm going to talk about, even though I know a couple of them definitely are. January 1st, 2024, I did my first cacao ceremony. And since then, I've done 3 or 4 more. I don't do them all the time because they are pricey, but I have also since then cultivated my own practice of having cacao. I would have it pretty much most days, but because of the properties of cacao, it has a huge impact on my state of mind. Different things that can boost serotonin and dopamine and the kind of happiness chemicals in the brain. It's definitely something you should talk to a doctor about before using. It's also really tasty. I found that doing this has made me a more creative person. It's also made me a more spiritual person because it allows me to kind of connect more with the natural world. And the specific, I think, branch of people within yoga that do this kind of cacao work tend to have a real focus on the seasons and on making these changes throughout different cycles of nature. And that's something that I can really connect with on a spiritual level that I find for me other spiritual practices just don't really sit as well with me. Reading, I love reading, and adding reading into my day, particularly I like to read before bed. This has been a habit that has had a huge difference on my well-being and on my creativity and as well on my sleep. I think it's really easy to get into the habit of watching a lot of TV in the evenings or just spending a lot of time around screens in general. I feel like I don't actually unwind and I can often feel myself winding up in that situation. Whereas when I read a book, I find you kind of just have to be really engaged in the world. I've read some really captivating books in the last year and I'm really looking forward to reading a lot more books this year. I think a lot of these habits for me and a lot of the reasons they've been life-changing for me is just it's the space to be able to do these things that is really important. And for most of us, we have this space. We have some time in the evening that could be spent this way. And we have, free access to books in most cases through a library. So it's definitely something that is possible to achieve. I kind of aim for around 30 to 60 minutes of reading before bed. And on other days, I might do a bit more, but it's the before bed reading that is the main habit for me. Since I started using the system of getting things done, I have become a different person. I used to be somebody who definitely forgot a lot of tasks that I needed to do. Having a daily to-do list just never really worked for me because I would get really frustrated when I had to move something from one task list to another. Developing a master task list and going through the motions of the getting things done system, that has been a game changer for me. The reason it's a habit is because if you want to actually free up your mind and have your mind quieten down and stop reminding you of all the things that you have to do, then you have to be using the system regularly. If your brain doesn't trust that you're actually using this system, it will continue to remind you of all the things that you need to do. And I know this because I've had definitely periods where I haven't been using this system and I've been plagued by mental reminders of things. But when I'm using this system regularly and updating it weekly and checking in on it daily, I definitely notice that there is a significant reduction in my stress. Another habit that has made a huge impact on my life is the idea of daily priority. Priority can be a tricky one. I've definitely had a mixed relationship with it. Sometimes labeling things as high priority can make me more likely to avoid things. But when I choose something as the main priority of the day, I tend to find that can often really help me to actually get the important things done. By choosing one main priority every day and trying to do that thing first, if you do that every single day, you will have had 365 important things done in that year. And that can make a huge difference on your life because you're doing the most important thing every day. I often like to think of this as if I get that one thing done, I can basically stop work for the rest of the day. Now, often I won't actually stop work, but it's that idea that I can, once I have that task done, that helps me to do that task a bit earlier in the day instead of just waiting until I've gotten through all of the other things that I wanted to do and then I kind of have to do that thing that is important but that I don't really want to do. I have in my Notion template the kind of daily view where I have the option for top 3 priorities, but obviously you could just do one if you felt that was more impactful for you. Another habit that has had a huge impact on the kind of person that I am is restricting information. That means limiting your news consumption, social media consumption, TV consumption, for me, Googling and searching for things, trying to create more space where there is no outside information coming in. I definitely think we spend a lot of time looking outside for answers when we ourselves have a lot of wisdom that can generate some really interesting things. I think it's hard to implement a negative habit. This is a negative habit since we're trying to cut back on something. And there's nothing that is replacing it in this case, because the idea of this is that you're trying to actually free up time so that you can just realize how much time you actually do have. And through doing that one thing, you can then probably find time to do all of the other things that I've mentioned in this video, since that's how I eventually got to do them. It was from realizing that actually a lot of my time was probably being spent doing things that didn't actually bring me a huge amount of joy, and often brought me a huge amount of stress that could affect the rest of the day. A couple of things that I found really helpful for that is I've turned off all the notifications on my phone. So I do still get WhatsApp notifications, but my phone doesn't vibrate and I don't get any other notifications. So I'm often very ill-informed. I don't check emails very often. I'll try and do inbox zero once a day. I don't actually do it every day anymore. I have an admin assistant that checks through our main inbox for the drama school that I run. And if things go amiss, oh well. I think things can feel urgent a lot of the time, but they rarely actually are urgent. It's been a great way for me to kind of protect my peace a bit more throughout the day. The final habit that I feel has made a huge difference on the kind of person I am is tracking my finances. I would like to be the person who doesn't spend that much money and who is, able to save a huge amount and doesn't spend on frivolous things. Over the last few years, I've definitely had a bit of an up and down time with spending because I will have had periods of great stress that have then made me want to take large holidays in order to almost justify the amount of time that's getting sucked up by work. Also, just from being quite busy, there have often been weeks where I've had to spend a lot more money eating out for food. I think generally when unhappy, there's a tendency towards wanting to get a coffee and a treat and all of these things that definitely add up. It's hard to stop those things sometimes, but one thing that I've found really worked to help me to do that less is to just track my finances. Not actually really change them, even not necessarily trying to stick to a budget, but actually just observing on a weekly basis what money was spent really helps me into the next week reduce my spending, except for, the things I actually need to spend on. That is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you are going to be implementing any of these habits, let me know in the comments below. And if you have any habits that you have found have been really life-changing, simple enough things that people could add into their daily or weekly routines, do comment those down below and I will see you in the next video.